a sudden? The orders do nothing to make us safer. They do nothing. They placate special interest groups to keep them happy and motivated, but it is not going to do a single thing to keep us safer.
Shared scarcity.
I am fortunate to live in Douglas County. My sheriff, Dave Weaver, runs one of the finest law enforcement agencies in the state. Yet our average response time is still almost 5 minutes. Do you know how long the average active shooter incident lasts? About 2 minutes.
Cool, man. You have a good day?
People are bleeding and dying in the other 3. I refuse to delegate to any government agency my personal protection or that of my family. Are you with me?
Yeah!
I was a police officer myself in California back in the 70s and 80s. I attended a presentation recently put on by an officer from one of the agencies. He's a SWAT officer. He made his presentation after that tragic incident at the grade school in Connecticut. But he so rightly observed that taking people's guns away from them isn't going to avoid that. He said there's one thing, and this man had his master's degree in studying this kind of psychology of an active mass shooter. There's one thing these people understand, and that is resistance. And the best way to resist is to be armed yourself. How many of you saw Bob Costas on Halftime? I don't know if he watched news reports from out here, but I was on with my client, and I used the phrase, the problem in Aurora was not too many guns in the theater. The problem was not enough.
Amen.
He either thinks a lot like me, I doubt it,
He is.
or he quoted me because he says those people out there who think that there weren't enough guns are all wrong. Well, I tell you, we are right. Had I been in that theater, had any of you been in that theater, we wouldn't have sat by and watched what happened in that theater, would we? We will stand by our families, we will stand by our friends, we will stand by strangers who are victims of violence, and that's what we have to go after. We have to go after violence. We have to go after mental illness. We're using the criminal justice system to treat the mentally ill, and it doesn't work. I also had another thought this week, and somebody texted me this morning and said, well, this person thinks like you. And I don't have the Senate bill number, but I understand there's a Senate bill coming that says if you're a commercial private property owner and you post your property that you will not permit firearms in there, then you assume tort liability for the safety of the people on your property. I respect those signs because I believe in private property rights just the way I want people to believe in my Second Amendment rights. But I also choose not to patronize those places. I turn and I take my money elsewhere. As an attorney, I can guarantee you that if a business had to take on liability for the safety of its occupants by posting no handguns, every one of those signs would come down tomorrow.
Yes.
Now, how many of you like going to a movie on a Friday night? Jim Mapes likes going to a movie on a Friday night. Jim Mapes has had a concealed weapons permit for many years. Jim Mapes decided to go to his regular theater in Thornton about 10 days after the tragic events in Aurora. His firearm was visible. Even though he had a concealed weapons permit, it was visible. And somebody in the theater noticed it, went out and told the management. They called the police department. The police department responded with 17 officers carrying carbines. Mr. Mapes handled it absolutely perfectly. Someone left the theater, walked out, called back in and said, somebody in there has a gun. My response would have been, oh good, there's two of us. Want to make sure I know where he is. But Jim said, oh, well, that would be me. Don't worry about it, I've got a permit. So he steps to the door, puts his hands out first, lets them know I have a sidearm, it's holstered on my right side. They proceeded to handcuff him, to take him into custody, to perp walk him across the parking lot with a police dog barking at his heels, and they took him to the police station. They interviewed him. I've got a transcript of that interview. It's interesting. Well, didn't you think people would feel bad? Ladies and gentlemen, we do not arrest people on the mood of the moment in this country. I called Jim after I heard the story and I said I'd like to help you. And I felt it was important that he get his message out, that he wasn't doing anything wrong. I'm going to share with you something that didn't get reported much. Jim Mapes was at that same theater the night of the Aurora shootings, thinking it could be a multi-site terrorist attack. Thornton PD responded over there, but this time they handled it properly. As he exited the theater, they saw that he was armed. A sergeant holding a carbine said, excuse me, sir, you haven't done anything wrong. May I speak to you for a moment? Checked his ID, checked his concealed weapons permit, bid him a good day, and sent him home. So the only explanation to what happened 10 days later can be emotion, lack of logic, being politically correct. And those are our enemies, folks. They're appealing to the emotions of the masses in trying to infringe upon our constitutional rights. In the last part of Heller, the Supreme Court decision talks about, you know, constitutional principles don't give way to policy discussions. These are principles that we are dealing with, ladies and gentlemen, and we have to stand up, we have to defend them. We've got some great help in this building, but they don't hold the majority. You're going to hear from a good friend of mine coming up in a few minutes, who is one of our state legislators. But first, I want to introduce you to someone who I consider a hero, because when I talked to him on the phone, I said, Jim, this is bigger than you. By the way, I'll give you the end of the story. We were on all 4 network stations here in Denver on Friday afternoon following this, so a week later. In one of those interviews, I said if I was the city of Thornton, I would move expeditiously to dismiss these charges. The following Tuesday, I got a call from a rather agitated city attorney. Anyone who works in the criminal justice system knows when you get a municipal code violation and you're set for a court appearance in September, nobody looks at that for 6 weeks. Amazingly, they were looking at it on Tuesday morning, apparently. He says, I just hand-walked a motion in front of the judge. He signed it dismissing the municipal court charges and told the police they could file with the Adams County DA if they thought he violated any state laws. So Thornton PD referred it to the Adams County DA. We waited a few weeks, got back a very, very nice letter that said, we have reviewed this carefully, and Jim Mapes has violated no laws. Folks, we don't arrest people, take away their civil liberties, lock them up, and charge them with crimes when they haven't committed any, and the city of Thornton will be held to answer.